So by this time, we have talked about two general ways to create classes. One is to manually define the class breaks, which you have full control on where is the breaking points. The other way is to use the commonly used classification schemes like equal interval, natural breaks, the quantile, and standard deviation. With all these choices, now the question is how can I decide which way I should use when I want to create classes? The answer to this question turned out to be not an easy one because it depends on both the attributes of the data as well as the purpose. The other way to tell which method is more useful is to look at the histogram of the value distribution. If the histogram seems to be showing that the values are all over the place and there's no clear central tendency, then the natural break methods or quantile methods works better. But if you see that the histogram is close to being normally distributed, there's a clear central tendency around the mean, the deviation around the means are very balanced. This case, the use of equal interval or standard deviation works relatively well. In any data sets, we may face outliers, and they are so distant away from other values, and they have been causing trouble with the formation of classes because any way to form the class involves either use the means or the ranks or the deviation, and all this will be affected by the outlier. For example, in the diagram, in the histogram shown above, most values are located within or below the value of 10, but there's a very few, one or two actually have a very high value like 80, 90, or 100. Then what you see is that all the other values form one big bar, and there's the outliers form the small bars on the other end. This would not show any pattern of the data. Instead, if we remove that extreme value, we're going to see that the features are actually well distributed over the lower end of the values. Okay, so the histogram on the right shows that the pattern of distribution much better. Okay, and correspondingly, you see the map on the left basically show no pattern, but the map on the right shows clearly there's some patterns of high and lows. Okay. So that demonstrates the effect of the outliers to classification. There's a number of ways we can deal with the outliers. One way is to take out the outlier first and form the classes without the outlier, and then putting the outlier back to one of the classes you already formed. Or you can just give the outlier independent classes in addition to the class you already formed from other values. In the rare case, outliers are actually errors where people forget to put decimal points into the digits, which cause the value to be extreme. So in that case, we may want to flag them or remove them from the data sets so that other data are more consistent. Our previous discussion basically assumed you already know how many classes you want to form. But in fact, this question turned out to be not an easy one because it's not clear which of the class numbers will allow the patterns to show up. For example, the map at the middle of this slide shows 9 categories, and the other map showing 5 categories. Whether they are meaningful, okay, whether the pattern you're looking for is not clear, which way will cause you to see the pattern. If you have more classes, it may reveal more detailed pattern, but if you don't need those patterns, they are more confusing than informative. On the other hand, if you do fewer classes, some of the detailed patterns may be hidden. It doesn't reveal some of the variations that you may be interested in seeing. So it's a trade-off. What you can do is to try vary the number of classes and make multiple of those maps. And then by reading these different maps and see which way give you the best balance. When you show the classified data to the user, you have to think about how user can be easier to make sense of your classes. In particular, the break value you use be either easier or harder to remember or to make sense. Guidelines for making the breakpoints between classes is to use simpler numbers. Pair these two maps at the bottom. They show the same data and classified into 5 categories, but the map on the left use very random class breaks, which make it hard to think or to conceptualize how the class is actually formed. On the other hand, the breakpoints at the right side of the map, they use the whole numbers around either 100 or 50 that make the value range very much easier to grab on.